Chosen one, stop for a moment. If you click away now, you'll miss something that doesn't circle back. What you're about to hear isn't random, and it isn't late. It's landing at the exact moment it needs to, because you're closer than you think to understanding why things around you have started to shift. Listen closely, because what I'm about to reveal dismantles every quiet doubt you've carried about how others truly see you. 72 hours ago, I became aware of a private conversation, not by accident. It was a closed meeting, deliberately arranged, where 5 highly influential people gathered for one reason only: you, your presence, your effect. The disruption you create in systems they've relied on for decades without question. What they said when they believed no one else could hear will confirm instincts you've tried to talk yourself out of more than once. There's a sharp divide between what's said to your face and what's spoken when you're not in the room. And that gap isn't what you've been trained to assume. They're not criticizing you. They're not planning your collapse. They're not dismissing your potential. They're afraid you're about to realize how much power you've been holding without naming it. That meeting wasn't casual. It was urgent. Someone noticed something they couldn't explain away anymore. Your energy began expanding beyond a range they know how to manage. Your presence alone started changing dynamics that once ran smoothly without resistance. People who had never questioned themselves before suddenly felt unsettled around you. And here's the part they don't know how to stop. You're not doing anything obvious. You're not boasting. You're not competing. You're not trying to prove a point. You're simply being who you are. And that's what keeps them awake at night. The reason this matters now is because conversations like this are meant to stay hidden. Not because they're harmless, but because if you understood the full extent of what's being said when you're not present, you'd move differently. You'd stop shrinking. You'd stop waiting. And certain structures depend on you never reaching that point. Stay with this until the end. Not everyone will. But if you do, you'll see who they are, what was actually said, why your awareness is the real threat, and what this moment is asking you to do next. There's one detail from that conversation I haven't touched yet. And once you hear it, the way people shift around you when no one else is watching will finally make sense. It happened in the deepest hour of the night, when facades are tired and truth slips out. 7 figures moved quietly into a corporate building, unseen, unrecorded, leaving behind no digital footprint, as if the meeting itself needed to deny its own existence. That level of secrecy wasn't about security, it was about survival. To publicly admit they were studying someone they claimed didn't matter would have shattered the illusion they'd spent their lives protecting. These were not people anxious over rumors. These were architects of outcomes, decision makers whose choices ripple through thousands of lives, people raised in rooms where authority is never questioned, where acknowledging an external force is the same as confessing decline. And yet, at that hour, every word circled back to you. The first voice belonged to someone seasoned, a figure who had spent decades constructing an image of untouchable influence, a person who had never spoken the language of threat. And still, the words surfaced. We need to address this person before it's too late to contain what's awakening. Contain, not study, not learn from. Contain, as though you were a force of nature, something that grows beyond walls once it reaches a certain point. The same fear echoed in ancient words, for such a time as this. Not an explanation, but a recognition that timing itself has shifted. The next voice came from the creative world, someone long positioned as the standard of originality. Months of observation had left them unsettled. This person doesn't imitate, doesn't chase formulas. They move from a frequency I believed was mine alone. And then the admission that cut deepest. They do it without effort. That was the fracture. You're not fighting to be real. You're not rehearsing uniqueness. You're simply standing in what you are. And in doing so, you undo decades spent crafting performances meant to look authentic. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. That knowing cannot be manufactured, and they feel the difference. From the financial realm came a colder certainty. This was someone trained to dissect outcomes, to chart success like math. There was no speculation in their voice. This person will succeed, not possibly, inevitably. They spoke of patterns, of convergence, of doors opening where no doors should exist, opportunities forming without pursuit, alignment without manipulation. And we know that all things work together for good, not as comfort, but as law, something already in motion. The room shifted when the question was raised, ally or obstacle. Not if you would rise, but how they should position themselves when you do. Your future wasn't being debated, only their proximity to it. That kind of language only appears when resistance feels pointless. The final voice belonged to a strategist, someone whose career was built on spotting leaders long before crowds followed. Their assessment was quiet and devastating. This person has what cannot be replicated: credibility that isn't staged, integrity that doesn't fluctuate with audience size. When you speak, people sense truth without filtration. When you act, they feel coherence, not performance. Essence. Against that, they admitted, every tool of manipulation fails. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on an hill cannot be hid. The conclusion came without debate. They had a narrowing window. Either attach themselves before your value ascends beyond reach, or deny you publicly while privately tracking every movement. What unsettled them most was this truth they couldn't reframe. Entire systems of organized falsehood were being dismantled, not by rebellion, not by force, but by one person choosing to live without a mask. And they know once that kind of light is recognized, it doesn't return to the shadows. After that night, they moved with quiet urgency. What they believed would unravel you became their next strategy. They launched a full investigation, convinced that somewhere beneath the surface there had to be a fracture. Someone like you, they assumed, must be performing. So they hired a specialist trained to expose false identities, a professional whose only task was simple and ruthless. Find the weakness in your authenticity. Prove that you were no different from the rest. For weeks, every visible layer of your life was examined. How you act when no one is watching, how you respond when there are witnesses, the choices you make in silence, the consistency between your private and public self. They expected discrepancies. They searched for masks, for strategy, for signs of a double life. What came back instead unsettled them deeply. There were no contradictions, no hidden performance, no split identity waiting to be exposed. The report stated it plainly: you are who you appear to be. Not as a tactic, not as an image, as truth. One line struck hardest. This person operates with a level of internal congruence, observed in less than 1% of profiles over a 20-year career. This is not an act, it is nature. That sentence did more damage than any accusation could have. Because if your honesty flows without effort, what does that reveal about the years they spent constructing false selves? If integrity rises naturally within you, what does that say about lives built on manipulation? The integrity of the upright shall guide them, not as a lesson, but as a law they could no longer deny. Your existence became a mirror, and they discovered something terrifying. They could not shatter the mirror without revealing how deeply they feared their own reflection. So they went further, this time beyond behavior. They turned toward what they thought was invisible: energy. They brought in someone trained to read subtle frequencies, convinced that kindness must be calculated, generosity a hidden transaction, compassion a refined strategy. Weeks passed as they measured what cannot easily be faked. They monitored your nervous system in moments of service. They observed your heart rhythms when you gave without recognition. They traced your cognitive patterns when making decisions that cost you something. The findings dismantled their last defense. Your internal state remained elevated without effort. When you help, your body responds with genuine compassion, not rehearsed empathy. When you choose, your mind reflects coherence, not calculation. The specialist's conclusion was final. This person does not manufacture goodness. They operate from a base state of authentic compassion. Their frequency remains aligned because it is who they are. And then came the truth they had spent their lives resisting. Some people are sincere without motive. Some people walk in goodness without strategy. Authenticity is not a myth. Create in me a clean heart, O God. A clean heart does not require concealment. It has nothing to hide. What rose in them then was not rivalry, it was shame. The kind that surfaces when manipulation stands exposed by purity, when performance collapses in the presence of someone who simply lives awake. And that is why this could never stay hidden for long, because truth like yours does not announce itself loudly. It reveals itself by remaining unchanged under every light. This is not a small decision. If you keep moving without discernment, you could drift toward destruction without even realizing it. So stop, pause, take a holy moment right here and become fully present. Before we go any further, I need you to do something that may look simple, but carries spiritual weight, an act of agreement in the spirit. First, like this video, let that click be more than a gesture. Let it be a declaration. I refuse every scheme of the enemy. I stand with what God is speaking over my life. Second, subscribe and stay connected not just to a channel, but to a flow of messages meant to keep your spirit awake, focused, and alert. As we are moving toward 5,000 subscribers, your connection helps ensure this message continues reaching those who are meant to hear it. Third, take a moment to write 999 or 777 inches the comments and share your city and where you are located. Let this be a prophetic sign between you and God. I am not the one who is lost. I am the one. You are calling back into alignment. I am awake. I will not be led astray. And to those who feel led and able to support this ministry through your prayers, your words, or through the Super Thanks feature, know this. You are not just giving. You are standing with us as a co-laborer in this assignment. Your seed is not random. It is alignment. It is your way of saying, Lord, I trust your leading. I align myself with your protection. Amen. When they gathered again months later, the air had changed. The confidence that once filled the room was gone. What remained was something heavier, urgency mixed with quiet surrender. Power no longer spoke from a place of command, but from the fear of being left behind. The executive broke the silence with words that cut through every remaining illusion. Their window was closing. If they didn't act now, they would become irrelevant the moment your recognition reached its natural weight. Association was no longer a choice. It was survival. Competition was dismissed without debate. You were no longer someone to outrun. You were someone they needed access to before your circle sealed itself. The financial projections followed, precise and unforgiving. If you continued on your current path without adopting calculated tactics, within 18 months you would hold influence it had taken them decades to manufacture, not through force, not through leverage, but through something they no longer possessed. 18 months, not a lifetime, not a slow climb, a compression of time that exposed how fragile their achievements truly were. Influence rooted in truth moves faster than influence built on compromise. They knew they couldn't reproduce it, because it was grounded in integrity they had traded away long ago. Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. Then the question surfaced, trembling beneath the numbers. What if you chose to awaken fully? If these outcomes were unfolding while you moved without conscious acceleration, what would happen if you stepped into your awareness with intention? No one answered. Silence carried the truth they didn't want to voice. If you aligned deliberately with what you already carry, there would be no field where imitation could keep up. The strategist laid out the remaining paths. If you continued naturally, your rise was unavoidable, and they would fade within 2 years. If they attempted interference, it would only expose them further, turning resistance into proof of the contrast between truth and fabrication. The final option was association now, while relevance could still be preserved. It was the only scenario that offered them a future. And yet even that option felt hollow, because it required something they could not guarantee, that you would see value in what they had to offer. They knew the imbalance. You already possessed what mattered. Authenticity, integrity, real connection, a life that draws success without chasing it. What currency could they place on the table that you didn't already hold? That realization pressed them into the most revealing territory of all. To assess your character, they had to do something none of them had practiced in years: tell the truth about themselves. The creative voice spoke first, raw and unguarded. 15 years ago, they had abandoned their integrity in exchange for visibility. Every day since had been spent justifying that choice. But your existence dismantled the lie they lived by. You were succeeding without sacrificing essence, and that meant the betrayal had never been necessary. It wasn't fate, it was fear. What shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world and lose his own soul? That confession opened the flood. The executive followed, admitting to calculated losses of friendship, people discarded because they offered no strategic advantage. And yet you maintained genuine bonds without measuring return, and those very relationships were amplifying your influence beyond anything manipulation had produced. Humanity, it turned out, generated more power than strategy ever had. The financial voice cracked next. 2 decades spent optimizing life for output, trimming away joy, connection, anything that didn't multiply wealth. And yet your life, balanced and generous, appeared fuller, richer, more alive. Money had been won, life had been lost. Better is a little with righteousness than great revenues without right. Then the youngest spoke, and the room fell still. They had never known who they were without performance. Born into constant visibility, identity had been shaped by approval before self-awareness ever formed. Seeing someone genuine didn't inspire them, it terrified them. Because there was no true self to return to, your presence forced each of them to face what they had surrendered on the altar of ambition. Your integrity exposed the stories they told themselves to survive compromise. But the most devastating truth wasn't simply that you were authentic. It was that you were prospering because of it. That single fact demolished the central justification of their lives. The belief that integrity must be sacrificed for real success. You proved it was a lie. And if it was a lie, then the years of betrayal, the erosion of self, the quiet shame they carried, had all been unnecessary. And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. After the confessions, the room fell quiet again. And for the first time, power understood that it was no longer setting the direction. It was reacting to it. What they designed next was both the highest acknowledgement and the clearest confession that you hold real power. Not the kind that dominates, but the kind that cannot be dismissed. The executive named it without disguise. They could not neutralize you using familiar methods, because you operate from a frequency outside their reach. That left only 2 paths. Either they rise toward truth themselves, or they accept becoming irrelevant. To rise meant something far more unsettling than strategy. It meant becoming less false. The creative voice hesitated, then spoke a thought that once would have sounded ridiculous. What if they tried to be authentic, not as an image, not as a tactic, but for real? Coming from someone whose career had been carefully constructed, the admission landed with weight. Your presence had stirred something unexpected in people long trained to suppress it. A genuine desire to recover integrity they had buried years ago. This is real power, not the power to control others, but the power to awaken them, power that doesn't demand attention, yet transforms rooms simply by standing whole. The kingdom of God is not in word, but in power. Not declared, demonstrated. The strategist proposed what he called a progression toward authenticity, slowly removing masks, allowing vulnerability to surface, modeling their steps after the way you live without effort. It was no longer about studying markets or influence. They were studying you. Then came the most revealing decision of all. When they discussed how to approach you, agreement formed quickly. No transactions, no leverage. No offers dressed as generosity. Instead, they would ask you for help. Not professional help, personal help. Each one named an area where they had lost themselves and believed you carried something they could not manufacture. They would come without posture, without authority, admitting they no longer knew who they were beneath performance. It was strategy, yes, but it was also real need, because beneath their influence sat confusion, and they believed you held clarity. The executive summarized it simply. If they wanted connection, it could not come from power. It had to come from humility, because power, as they had learned, does not impress you. Authenticity does. So don't be surprised when people appear differently than before. When confidence gives way to honesty, when authority softens into exposure, the vulnerability will be real, even if the approach feels complex. Powerful people who never asked for help are preparing to ask you, because they finally see that unwavering integrity carries more weight than every title they possess. Yet the most unsettling realization came next. They turned their attention to something you weren't even aware you were doing, your effect on people you've never met. The financial analysis revealed patterns that refused to be explained away. Communities exposed to your presence showed consistent change. More kindness, less drama, healthier relationships. Not because you taught techniques, but because you existed visibly as yourself. Within weeks, behavior shifted. Not inspiration as a feeling, but transformation as action. By their fruits ye shall know them. The evidence was not emotional, it was measurable. People spoke of finding courage to have conversations they had avoided for years. Others admitted realizing their lives no longer matched who they truly were. Creators began reshaping their voices, not copying you, but uncovering themselves. Authenticity was spreading, not by instruction, but by contact. A chain reaction, one person becoming real, giving permission for another to do the same. This was not a movement you announced. It was a movement that happened because truth cannot stay contained. An accidental revolution. And the most powerful revolutions are never planned. They begin when someone refuses to fracture themselves to fit the world. The youngest named it plainly. You were not trying to lead anything. You weren't calling followers, and that was what made it unstoppable. Integrity was doing the work on its own. Then the question surfaced that silenced the room. What happens when you realize the power you already carry? If this much change unfolds without intention, what becomes possible when awareness joins alignment? No one answered, because the answer was too large to say out loud. Fully awake, you wouldn't just influence culture, you would redefine it. You would set standards others could not ignore. And long after this moment passes, your name would still be spoken, not because you sought legacy, but because truth leaves marks time cannot erase. That was when the conversation shifted again, and how they truly see you was finally about to be spoken. Then a question surfaced that none of them wanted to speak, yet all of them felt. What if someone outside this room decides you are too disruptive to be allowed to continue? The silence that followed wasn't doubt, it was recognition. When real influence begins to rise, there are always those willing to protect their interests through shadows. Smear campaigns dressed as concern, sabotage framed as professionalism, quiet attacks meant to exhaust rather than confront. The executive broke the stillness with a sentence no one expected. They needed to protect you. It startled the room. Protect you? You had been framed as a rival, a destabilizing force. Why would they shield what once threatened them? The answer came stripped of pretense. Because if you were destroyed before reaching your fullness, they would lose the only living proof they had that authenticity actually works. And without that proof, they would retreat back into the lie that compromise is inevitable. Worse than that, the world would lose a catalyst it desperately needs. Your life had crossed an invisible threshold. You were no longer just a person, you were evidence. The creative voice followed, steady but urgent. If something happened to you, they would all return to excusing their own betrayals. They would tell themselves, sincerity is naive, integrity impractical. You couldn't be allowed to fall, not because of competition, but because you carried hope that change is still possible. A bruised reed shall he not break, and the smoking flax shall he not quench. What was happening was unmistakable. Those who once measured themselves against you now measured themselves by you. Your authenticity had become a reference point, a living reminder of what they abandoned and what they might still recover. The strategist outlined a plan, quiet, precise, effective. Each of them had reach in different sectors. Together, they could monitor for coordinated attacks and intervene before false narratives gained momentum. A protective web, unseen, unnamed, you wouldn't even know it existed. The financial one added weight to the promise. Any attempt at professional sabotage would meet real consequences, making an attack on you expensive enough to discourage repetition. The youngest offered their own shield. If misinformation surfaced, they could mobilize attention instantly, exposing deception before it rooted itself. Not to glorify you, but to defend truth. They were committing themselves as guardians, not out of obligation, not out of fear, but because your existence had become too valuable to lose. The executive made it final. Anyone who tried to destroy you would face them all, even if that meant opposing their own circles. That was the level of respect you had awakened without ever demanding it. But the meeting didn't stop at protection. It turned inward. The executive proposed a pact, not a contract, a vow among themselves. Each would begin the journey back to authenticity and support the others through it. He admitted openly that he didn't know how to recover what he had lost and needed help. That admission alone would have been unthinkable months earlier. The creative accepted first, suggesting regular meetings with no performance, no branding, only honest sharing of where integrity was hard and where it was returning. The strategist added a harder rule. If anyone slipped back into falsehood, the others had permission to call it out directly. No politeness, no protection of image. Iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend. One by one, they agreed. What formed was something rare, a circle of powerful people committing not to expansion, but to restoration. And you were the spark that made it possible. Then came promises, each one costly. The executive vowed to publicly acknowledge an unethical decision made years earlier, not because law required it, but because conscience did. Reputation would suffer, but integrity would begin to breathe again. The creative committed to releasing a long-hidden project, one they had buried because it wasn't commercially safe. Choosing truth over profit, risking relevance to reclaim voice. The strategist pledged to turn away clients who wanted manufactured authenticity and rebuild his work around helping people uncover what is real, a complete inversion of his income model. The financial one promised to give generously to causes that actually mattered to them, without benefit, without visibility. Anonymous. Because generosity only heals when it's not performance. The youngest made the hardest vow of all, to step away from platforms entirely for months, to find out who they were without metrics deciding their worth, to return only if authenticity could lead. These were not emotional statements. They were decisions with consequences, and every one of them traced back to you. The pact ended with one final clause. If you ever asked for help, they would respond immediately, no matter the cost. Because you had given them something they could not buy, proof that transformation is possible. Be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. When the meeting ended hours later, the room felt nothing like it had at the beginning. What started with calculation ended with humility. What began with fear closed with hope. Your quiet integrity had accomplished in one night what years of self-justification never could. They left with a plan. To begin where falseness had been strongest. To speak honestly about their fractures. To amplify voices rooted in truth. To refuse rewards that demanded betrayal. To document their return to authenticity, not as heroes, but as human beings learning again. Some will follow through fully, some will falter. One or two may retreat when truth becomes too costly. That is always the pattern. But what matters is this: your life moved people powerful enough to shape culture to even attempt change. That is real impact. Not measured in attention or wealth, but in awakened humanity spreading outward. The creative spoke one last time before leaving, naming what everyone felt. They arrived ready to confront a threat. They left having recovered something they believed was gone forever, their own humanity. That is who you are, not a rival, not a danger, but a living reminder that truth still works, even in places built to erase it. Hear this clearly, because it reframes everything you thought was breaking you. The pain you walked through was not random. The collapse was not punishment. The resistance was not a sign to turn back. It was evidence. Evidence that something in you carries weight. Evidence that pressure was applied because pressure is only wasted on what has no value. What tried to crush you was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to reveal what could not be erased. And now that the truth has been seen, you will start to notice shifts, doors opening that were never on the map, invitations that feel unreal, some empty, some unmistakably aligned. People who once looked past you will begin to look for you. Spaces you never belonged to will quietly make room. Cultures around you will soften. Voices will grow more honest. Masks will slip without being asked, not because you demanded change, but because presence like yours changes the temperature of a room. Those hidden conversations were only the beginning. What your existence is setting in motion will unfold over years, not days. And now you know the truth that was never meant to reach you. When they speak of you in private, it is not dismissal. It is not mockery. It is fear mixed with awe. They are afraid you will realize what you carry. They are shaken because your integrity reminds them what they traded away. They protect you because you are living proof that redemption is still possible. Behind closed doors, they are not tearing you down. They are naming the difference. They say you are real where they became constructed. You are whole where they fractured themselves to survive. You will rise because you refuse to betray what they abandoned. And the most unsettling truth of all is this: your life restored hope in people who believed it was gone forever. The stone which the builders refused is become the headstone of the corner, not because you fought your way there, but because you endured without becoming false. If something in you is shaking right now, it's because this message is not comforting you. It is calling you. You are not being coddled. You are being activated, marked, aligned. Your authenticity was never a flaw. It was never naivete. It was never weakness. It is the force that rearranges systems without announcing itself. For when I am weak, then am I strong. Strength that does not look like domination terrifies structures built on control. What comes next will demand more awareness than you've ever held. Because unconscious impact is already changing lives, and once awareness joins it, nothing remains the same. This is not the end of the story. It is the moment the ground shifts beneath it. And somewhere, just beyond what you can see right now, something has begun to move toward you, quietly, deliberately, as if a door has just been unlocked and left slightly open. May the fire you walked through become your proof, not your prison. May every tear you swallowed turn into vision, and every closed door become a sign that you were never built to fit small rooms. Let what tried to break you announce what is on you. Let the collapse expose the counterfeit, the shaking reveal the unshakable, the silence sharpen your hearing. You are not being punished. You are being positioned. You are not forgotten. You are being marked. And when the next door opens, you will not enter as the old version begging to be chosen. You will enter as the evidence that truth still carries weight. Let the fear fall off. Let the mask burn away. Let your steps become deliberate. Let your voice return. Let the resistance confirm the calling. Because the story is not ending here. What is moving toward you has already been released. And the moment you decide to stand fully awake, everything changes. Thank you for joining me in this holy moment. If this prayer spoke to your spirit, take a moment to share what it unlocked in you in the comments below. Your testimony may become the confirmation someone else has been waiting for. As you respond, take a moment to write 999 or 777, and also share your city and where you're listening from. Let this be a quiet but powerful declaration of alignment with what God is restoring in your life. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you stay connected to what God is unfolding next. As we're moving toward 20,000 subscribers, your presence helps this message continue reaching the hearts God is awakening right now. The journey of the chosen is only beginning. The season of silence is ending. The season of glory is here. This isn't just a return, it's a rebirth. This isn't just recovery, it's resurrection. And what God restores, nothing and no one can steal again. To every person who supports this ministry through your prayers, your comments, or by using the Super Thanks feature, thank you. Your faithfulness helps this message travel far beyond what any of us could do alone. Your name is rising. Let it rise. What if the breaking wasn't meant to end you? What if it was the signal that something has been authorized to begin through you? Amen.